And good morning once again. We are with Professor Thomas Schwartz of Vanderbilt University talking about the Trump administration and really the big headlines that has encompassed news just within the last few weeks. And I want to kind of bring up my phone here because there have been some tweets from Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen with the Homeland Security. She's also been kind of in the forefront of things. One particularly yesterday saying, we do not have a policy of separating families at the border, period. Followed by, for those seeking asylum at ports of entry, we have continued the policy from previous administrations and will only separate if the child is in danger. There is no custodial relationship between family members or if the adult has broken a law. And finally, DHS takes very seriously its duty to protect minors in our temporary custody from gangs, traffickers, criminals, and abusers. Overall thoughts, it seems like they're somewhat opposing. Well,
she's making a sort of key distinction. Ports of entry, as I understand it, one of the problems is that a lot of the separation is going on places that are not designated ports of entry. So in some ways, what she's talking about may indeed be quite accurate, but not really answering the real problem that they are doing this. They are carrying out this policy for undocumented immigrants at other places along the border. And so that even though you know, the idea is that if you follow certain types of practice, it won't happen. That in a large number of cases, people not following those practices for reasons maybe they don't know, whatever, they are actually separated.
So do we know actually how long they are separated for? What is the process? Because it seems like there's not a clear and concise
We
line.
don't know. I mean, the investigations were done that demonstrated the numbers at around 2,000 and then the numbers of adults at about 1,500 or so. But we don't actually know in specific terms how long, where, and all the rest. This is part of the issue. One of the issues that was raised in some of the news reports is the sheer overwhelming nature of this for manpower of the Border Patrol, that they simply don't even have the numbers, either in Border Patrol or social workers or others working with it, and that's why we're in the middle of these tent cities, and
we're seeing the videos.
We're seeing images of all these places, like these converted Walmarts that are being used. The problem is almost overwhelming,
and sometimes even very unassuming buildings.
Yes, are being used for shelters now, yes.
All right, let's get back to the lines. Hey, Lucy, good morning. I know you have something to say. What would you like to say, Lucy?
Yes, I do. And the last time I saw you, Mr. Torres, you had the immigration lawyer on your show.
Yes, I remember you, Lucy.
Okay, and remember what she said, what being in here illegally was? It was equivalent to a parking ticket. It's a misdemeanor. So get ready, folks. If we get pulled over with our children or grandchildren in the car, they might separate us for going 5 miles over the speed limit. I mean, this is just insane. I want to talk about Paul Ryan's immigration policy that Mr. Obama had rejected, and I want to say something in regards to what Joe said. Joe said earlier, we haven't stopped these other immigrants. No, we didn't stop these other immigrants. These other immigrants went on to form gangs 100 years ago called Honey Boy and the Purple Gang, the Bloods and the Crips, La Familia and Flying Dragons, all of New York, that were shipping kilos of heroin over to this country and dead Vietnam soldiers' caskets that they built specially over there to ship them here to deliver 8 kilos per casket to this country for the heroin trade. And they got our GIs also addicted, and when they came back over here, we had a problem we didn't deal with back then. So the gangs, MS-13 wasn't here then. We gave Central and South America MS-13. And of course, no Mexicans are coming over here because they know now that this country has turned into a crap hole. And they know better. So anyway, there is a book out called Democracy in Chains. And I think it goes into the Christian Zionists and all this purification they're going to do and everything for the country. You saw Kellyanne Conway on Meet the Press yesterday talked about our meat and poultry sales. China now is going to buy them. Of course they're going to buy them because we're going to put white people and black people in those chicken factories for drug rehab, and that's the GOP's new drug rehab policy. And now here's the thing about Paul Ryan. Obama rejected the Republicans' immigration reform because they wanted only people immigrating here who had high technical skills that would take high-paying jobs and high-skilled jobs only, okay? And they wanted to get rid of the 10-year visa, and they wanted to make it indefinite. President Obama rejected that because he said we had almost $1 trillion in student loan debt. All these kids getting out of college that we're promising them education is the key, and we're giving them away. But then that's okay. You can have a master's degree and go work in Tyson's chicken factory. So I just wanted to point those things out. They're trying to get us all into the Derek Prince mentality of, you know, the world's coming to the end, and they're extorting us, doing this to these kids today on TV to rush this thing through. This is the wrong way to do it. Anybody that's been in the desert, if the tent's on your head, here in Tennessee you can get in the shade, you can cool off. Out in the desert, it's just as hot in the shade as it is in the desert. And to me, this is going to run into a chicken game between the emotions of Americans and what they don't know about our policies and what we've been doing, because we have the memories of goldfish. Yeah. Thank you for listening.
All right, Lucy, thank you. A very packed statement.
Yes.
Is there anything that you want to add or just kind of reflect on from what she said?
Well, I think one of the things that she gets at is this question of what type of immigration policy should we have in this country. There is a serious dispute now about do you target, what groups do you want to have come to the country? Do you do that in terms of education, skill level, or do you have a across the board? You know, we don't believe anymore. I mean, at one point, immigration policy, of course, was very racial. It was very it excluded Chinese for years. It blocked Japanese immigrants. We only got rid of a lot of the racial categorizations in 1965. So we, as a country, have to decide what type of immigration, what type of welcome we want to have. Now, on the one hand, I think we want to be open to those seeking political asylum, those seeking freedom, as we have been. On the other hand, we have to, the economic issue is a complicated one. We don't want to be in a situation where we're admitting people who take jobs from citizens who are here as a constant. On the other hand, immigration has been an enormous economic boon at times for our country, too. So that is the serious debate. That's why this is such a difficult issue.
It's a tricky balance.
Yes.
It just seems like it. All right, let's go back to the lines. Hey, Brian. Brian, good morning. What's your question?
Hey, good morning. I'll start with a statement. And the first statement is, seems like that the media, academia, and bureaucracy constitute, I don't know what percentage of the workforce, especially at the college level and the media level, you know, all different outlets. And then, of course, you know, your bureaucracy, which is just so entrenched. It seems like, you know, 20, 25 years ago, their salaries weren't that high. But they got those automatic pay increases every year, 3 or 4%, and those creep up after a while. While the private sector, their benefit packages were just decimated. So what happened, obviously, with the Trump thing, and the professor knows me, I've called him before, was, you know, they just, certain people in the Rust Belt just stood up and said, hey, listen, you know, no more. So in reflection to politics, I'm going to give you my predictions. Now, normally on an off-election year, the president loses quite a number of seats in the House and then a few in the Senate. I'm going to say that we hold even in the House. When I say we, obviously, I'm a Republican. I'm an old Goldwater Republican. I'm going to say we stay even in the House, and I'm going to say we pick up 4 in the Senate. Now, that's going to look real good coming in legislatively, but there's no reason with how the country is doing economically. Now we've got peace with North Korea. He picked a great Supreme Court justice. I mean, he's doing really well, Trump. So the only thing I can figure out where not a majority of people are behind him is that the majority of people are behind him is the media is lying and academia is lying and the government is so entrenched that they just want liberals. Now, what does the professor think about that and the newscaster? I'd like to hear what you guys both think about that.
All right, Brian, thank you for calling.
Well, Brian's right. Brian certainly knew that Trump was going to get elected when many of us didn't, and I certainly take his point there. I think part of this is that the Trump campaign has made a very strategic decision in sort of trying to make sure that they've got their enemies lined up, like the media, academia, the deep state, the bureaucracy, and some of that is there's no doubt some accuracy to that. I think on the whole, though, there is this sort of sense that these are all monoliths that think alike, and in fact there's more differences there than might be thought. What Brian's correct about is that in the circumstances of the United States right now, in terms of the economy, in terms of even foreign policy, a strong argument can be made that the Trump administration, that there won't be this blue wave that everyone was thinking was going to happen in the midterms, and then in fact the Republicans might actually do surprisingly well for a party in power and all the rest. I don't know. I mean, I do think the House of Representatives is still really too close to call. I think the Senate will largely probably stay Republican because of the way the races are. But it is an interesting thing because even in the midst of what is peace and prosperity in general, you have a lot of political conflict, and you do have this very polarized situation. And in some ways, even though things are going very well, we still seem to be fighting as intensely as if we were back in the recession times.
I think it's the whole approach to things, once again, is how the information is being communicated out there. It is a completely different administration.
Yes.
And I think that is somewhat of a whiplash for some folks who have been used to things, media, politicians, those in different organizations across the country, for really some Americans as well. Yeah. And I think that is what kind of tapped in that was unexpected to media folks, was that he was able to tap into this kind of notion and somewhat deep feelings from many across the country, not just the South.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that, I don't want to just reveal too much because, once again, my opinions don't really matter as a journalist. But we do want to make sure that the callers who are on the line right now, make sure you stick. We'll get back to you as soon as we come after the break.